And good evening, and welcome to this Partners for Democracy special event. I'm Jim Trengrove. Of course, we're all focused on the race for the White House, but for Democrats, retaining the Senate and retaking the House is vitally important. Democrats came within a whisker of doing that keeping the House in 2020, when the traditional red wave that we were expecting never materialized. Currently, the partisan split in the House is 220 Republicans, 212 Democrats. There are 3 vacancies. And we at Partners for Democracy, we decided to, let me see if we can do this here. We decided to look at do our research and look at the races and find out which houses we thought were, which races we thought would be worth asking people to contribute to. And so let me pull up that list right here now. So here is the top 11 House districts that we're asking you to consider contributing to. And that includes Amish Shah in the Arizona 1st District, Kirsten Engel in Arizona District 6, Adam Gray in California 13, Rudy Salas in California 22, George Whitesides in California 27, Laura Gillen in New York 4, Mondaire Jones in New York District 17, John Mannion in New York District 22, Josh Riley in New York District 19, and Janelle Bynum in Oregon District 5, and Tony Vargas in Nebraska 2. Now, we're going to ask throughout the program, we're going to ask you to donate to partnersfordemocracy.com website and go there, and then you'll be able to pick the candidates or pick all of the candidates if you wish. But let's go. We're going to interview 3 of the candidates who are with us tonight. And I just wanted them to say hello real quickly so you can get an idea of who they are. We have John Mannion from New York 22. John, you want to unmute yourself and say hello?
Thank you, everybody, for what you do for the preservation of democracy and the support of hopefully candidates that are going to become members of Congress soon. Thank you.
Okay. And then we have Amish Shah from Arizona District 1.
Hi, everybody. How are you? Thank you so much for spending some time with us, getting to know us, and for all your support. Dr. Amish Shah, Arizona District number 1, and ready to go.
Okay, and our 3rd candidate is Kirsten Engel from Arizona District 6, just south of Amish there.
Yes. Hi, everyone. Kirsten Engel running for Congressional District 6, the seat we call the Gabby Gifford seat because she once held it. So looking forward to speaking with all of you.
Okay, great. First, we're going to be joined by Suzan DelBene. She is represents Washington State's 1st Congressional District. She also is chair of the Democratic Congressional Campaign Committee. She was the choice of House Democratic leader Hakeem Jeffries to lead the charge for the Democrats' effort to take the House back. So, Chairman DelBene, thank you for joining us this evening.
Absolutely. Thank you so much, Jim. I'm excited to be on the call with all of you today. And we are so grateful for your and Ed's leadership of Partners for Democracy and your partnership, because it is my job to make sure we take back the majority in the House. Your partnership in our shared mission to make sure we're supporting progressive change and defend democracy and take back the gavels.
Okay.
Thank you all for being on this call too, and for your support of House Democrats. Obviously, there's 41 days left until Election Day, and we're all in every day, every minute of every day through that time, and your help matters more now than ever.
Well, I was going to ask you a simple question. Is this going to happen? Are we going to take
Absolutely. My usual response is I'm confident and paranoid. I'm paranoid because we just have to be ready for whatever comes up along the way. And so we're not going to take anything for granted. We have incredible candidates running across the country, including the 3 great candidates, Amish Shah and Kirsten Engel and John Mannion. They're doing an incredible work. And frankly, the number one asset that we have is great candidates. The people are with us on policy, but the number one thing in swing districts that are really critical to our taking back the majority is making sure we have great candidates who people know care about the issues in their districts, are going to fight for their districts, and are trying to come to DC to get things done, which unfortunately on the other side, they don't seem too interested in that these days.
Yeah, yeah. Let me ask you, and I want to just put up, these are the 11 candidates that we chose. I know there are more. And if you do go to our partnersfordemocracy.com website, you'll see the way of doing that. But Chairwoman, how many of the current Republican seats do you think are in play this year?
Well, we have 30 red to blue candidates like Kirsten and John and Amish, and those are all seats we think we can flip. I will maybe qualify that by saying 4 of those 30 are seats that we need to keep. They're open seats, like in California, Katie Porter ran for Senate, so she left behind an open seat that we need to keep. That's Dave Min running California. We have 2 seats in Michigan where Alyssa Slotkin's running for Senate, leaving behind a swing district, and Dan Kilby's retiring. So 4 we got to keep because we got to net 4 more to take back the majority. So we got to make sure we keep the ones that are open, re-elect everyone we have, and we have 31 folks we call our frontliners, who are our incumbents who are in targeted races across the country. And then we've got to win 4 more. And we've got 3 right here. So your support for Kirsten, for John, for Amish, for others on your list is critically important because they're all being pounded on. They're up on the air. Every dollar is being used right now to turn out the vote. And we can win. We need to net 4 to take back the gavels, but we want a governing majority. So we're going to work hard to win every single one of these races.
I should say, your probably your first priority is to get the current members reelected. How do you decide how and where to marshal your resources among the new candidates?
Well, we really, I'm a data person, so we have to make the tough decisions on resources. We have been working hard to outraise Republicans, and we have at the DCCC, we've been outraising our Republican counterparts significantly this entire cycle. And our candidates have been outraising Republicans as well, putting them in a strong position. But we look at where the money can make the biggest difference. We have folks who are doing well, who seem to be in a good position. We have folks who are getting, pounded on every day. We have expensive media markets. We have markets that are a little more affordable. So we look at where outside groups are coming in. We look at where Republicans are making investments. We look at polling. We look at what's happening on the ground. And we look at where the best use of our dollars will help make sure we help folks get across the finish line. So it is lots of data, and we're going to be continuing to do that all the way through to November 5th.
Mm-hmm. When you give financial support to these candidates in their campaigns, are they free to spend it as they wish, or are there campaign strategies or messaging that you want them to adopt?
Well, we there's different ways that money comes to folks, and sometimes it's very specific. We can give money to help people with mail programs, for example, and that's just for doing mail to communicate with voters. Sometimes we go up on TV, so we might go up on TV on behalf of a candidate. That's money that we spend and ads that we run. So if you ever see ads that said this ad was paid for by DCCC, that's us doing the ad. We also have hybrid ads where there's certain requirements in terms of how those can be run, where we pay for part of them and our candidates pay for, or incumbents pay for part of it as well. But when it comes to broadcast, candidates get the lowest rate on TV. So we try to make sure we invest in places to take things, to invest in places so they can use their dollars most efficiently. We also invest in staff and organizers and, place campaign headquarters. So we do a whole bunch of work to help make sure folks' campaigns are going well.
Mhm. The reason I asked, for instance, as all politics are local. We heard Tip O'Neill say that 40 years ago. But do you want the candidates to stress the importance of taking back the House, or do you want them just run on local issues or electing Kamala Harris? I mean, are they sort of free to do what they think is working in their district?
They are all running their campaigns, and we're supporting them in their campaigns. They know what's most important in their districts, and that's what they need to focus on. But I think they have all been clear, and I've definitely been clear, that to get things done, we need the gavels. And so it is a huge driving force for me to make sure we take back the majority, but definitely I want to make sure that Kirsten and John and Amish come into the majority. I came in the minority. Coming in the majority is better. And folks want to see us get things done. And the way we get things done is have leadership and control of the floor to be able to move bills. And we want Hakeem Jeffries as our speaker when we are looking at certifying the presidential election too. So when you keep all those things in mind, having the majority is important. And I don't think anyone shies away from talking about how important that is.
Mhm. When you accepted this position to be the chair of the DCCC, did you look back at 2022 and any lessons learned from that, and he missed it because it was much closer than a lot of people had thought it would be?
Yeah, we've looked at what happened last cycle, and even in some cycles before, looked at what has happened in terms of how people get access to information. We've actually made our biggest investment ever in media consumption research in our swing districts, understanding how people are getting their information, because so much more is now digital. It's not traditional broadcast. For many people, this is their television and their phone. They don't have a TV anymore. So we're looking at how we best communicate with communities of color, what different languages folks consume their information in. So we have a very specific model for each of our districts in terms of where their voters are, how they communicate with them, the best way to get them information. And we've made our biggest investments ever in digital because so many people are getting their information that way. And it's not traditional news always. It might be through community leaders or influencers online to communicate. So we've learned what worked last time, but we also know the world has continued to change in terms of how people are accessing information, and we're continuing to keep up to date there. But we also have to look at the individual candidates, what's happening in the districts. We continue to have some redistricting, so that's also had some impact in some parts of the country even this year. So all of that plays a role in understanding the best path forward in terms of making sure we're supplying information to our candidates to help them, and we're making it the smartest investments we can.
Mm-hmm. I want to let you go on this final question here. We have 6 weeks to go, actually a day less than that. How do you see your next 6 weeks developing? What's going to be the priorities for you?
Well, I'm in DC right now. We finally passed a funding bill to keep the government open till through the December 20th. That was the big highlight of Republican success so far, is letting us lead the vote to keep the government open. I'm going to be on the road a lot, traveling around to continue to help raise resources, to help our candidates get out the vote, just everything we can do to make sure that we get these races across the finish line. Tim Walz has said we can sleep when we're dead. I like to sleep, so I don't necessarily agree with his prediction there, but I also know that we can sleep on, November 6th, or we might be in some recounts, so maybe a little bit after that, but we're just going to do everything we can, working across the country, and our races are all across the country. You've got New York and Arizona here today, but we have races in places where the presidential is not playing out. We have races in red states where we have districts we can win, but you're not going to see a presidential or Senate race. And then we have races in places like Arizona where we have everything going on. So we're going to be working hand in hand all the way across the country to continue to make this happen. So your support makes a huge difference, because we don't want to, it was about 7,000 votes between us and the majority last cycle, 7,000 votes across the country. And we had great candidates like Kirsten, who worked hard, who came back to win the second time around, as I did when I ran. I ran for one cycle, and then I came back in 2012 and won in my district. We're going to make sure that we're not going to let that 7,000 votes go in that same direction. We want to make sure we're ahead. So just thanks for all you're doing, because every dollar counts, every phone call that folks can do, all the volunteers, all of that is going to make a difference. So we turn out every vote in every district across the country.
Okay, well, thank you so much. Let me just put this up here one more time here, so so it's the partnersfordemocracy.com is the website you want to go to. And that way you'll be able to contribute to our top 11 candidates. Actually, I think there's another link there to contribute to any of the candidates who are running this year, but also the 3 candidates that we are about to meet. So Chairwoman, thank you so much for doing this. I really appreciate that. Making the effort. I know you've been busy, and your staff has been great working with us to make this happen. So
thanks, Jim. And I know you're going to hear from these incredible people. I look forward to seeing you guys all soon on the road here, but thanks for all you're doing, and they're working incredibly hard. So thanks for supporting them. And thanks again, Jim and Ed, for all you're doing to help make sure we have a great success in November. Take care, everyone.
Okay, thank you so much. Appreciate it. And we're going to go to our candidates now. And if you guys all want to unmute yourselves, that would be great. Amish and John and Kirsten. Great. So let me go. I've got some specific questions for each of you, but also just in general, what's going on. Let me start with Amish. And Amish, if you could just just take a minute and tell us a little about your district and why you're going to win in November.
Certainly. Thank you. So I'll introduce myself real quick for those that don't know me. Dr. Amish Shah, I'm an emergency physician, been practicing for 20 years, very lucky, great career, worked in an academic setting, Mount Sinai on the Upper East Side of Manhattan, and that's where I cut my teeth as my first job out of residency, worked for the National Football League, did sports medicine, did rural medicine all over Arizona, and currently practice in the heart of our district at the Mayo Clinic. So great medical career. Owe a lot of this to the teachers, medical school counselors, guidance counselors that helped me along the way. Got into it purely for the sake of public service. I'm talking politics, to make a tangible difference in the lives of the people we serve. I am well known in Arizona as the door knocking guy. I have personally knocked on over 22,000 doors to get to know the people of my district. That is my winning secret. It's no secret really, but all of the races, 3 times for the Arizona House of Representatives, I won, and I won resoundingly because I was out there knocking those doors, speaking to people. So while in the House, I've had more bills signed into law than any Democrat in over a decade, and really proud of the work we did. Did this in a very bipartisan fashion. That is a huge asset in my district, where people are looking for people who are going to get stuff done, as Chairwoman DelBene said, and be able to work with the other side and still hold our values true. So I think that gives you a little sketch of my district. It's North Scottsdale, Paradise Valley. It's a it's sort of a conservative district, and they want people who will make sure to work with the other side.
Okay. Thank you, Amish. Want to go to Kirsten Engel? I guess she's south of you, down in the Tucson area. Is that correct?
Yes, I'm down in a very large geographic district in the southeastern corner of the state. So Tucson, it goes then north about halfway up to Phoenix, if you're familiar at all with Arizona. And then we go all the way down to the border. And I do call it the Gabby Giffords district because she represented this district at one time and continues to be an amazing advocate out there. So some real quick things about this race. We believe we are, just like Amish, we are a battleground district in a battleground state. These districts are hyper competitive. My district is basically a third Democrat, a third independent, a third Republican. And as Amish said, we really have to appeal very broadly, especially to those independents. A thing about my race is I actually ran last time in 2022 and missed winning by one of the closest margins in the country, a little over 1%. That's about.
Yeah, if I can interrupt you, I saw 350,000 votes cast, and you lost by 5,000.
5,232 to be exact.
Right.
I'm a law professor. Came here 20 years ago to teach at the University of Arizona after a career as an environmental attorney. Growing up in Chicago, working at Massachusetts Attorney General's office and the United States Environmental Protection Agency. Dream come true to be here in Arizona. Absolutely loved it. Got into politics as an advocate for public schools. So at this point, people might ask, well, look, you came so close last time. What is different this time? I think the important thing to know is that my opponent that I lost against so narrowly now has a voting record. He posed as a moderate. He has been voting with the MAGA far right. And this is just not a MAGA far right district. So from abortion access to siding with Trump, to reject the bipartisan border security and immigration deal, which is popular here in Arizona, and this is a border district. Those are our real talking points, really showing that he is an extremist. And it turns out he's got a long history with a Christian nationalist group here that he brought to Arizona. Other big issue and difference for me is that I do have the backing of the DCCC, like Amish and John Mannion. And they did not invest in the challenger races in Arizona last time around. But under Chairwoman DelBene, she's been absolutely terrific. She sees that we can win these seats with some national help. And I think and showing my opponent as an extremist and me as somebody who's rolling up my sleeves with a reputation of working to get things done, we can get this across the finish line.
Okay. Let's go to John Mannion in Central New York. John.
Thank you so much. Yes. So I'm John Mannion. I was an AP biology and chemistry teacher for almost 30 years, and my wife is an elementary teacher. I'm a native Syracusan. I've lived in Central New York my entire life. And some commonality here with my colleagues is that I could not sit and do nothing after the 2016 election. I watched juniors in high school watch maybe the first presidential election like they had ever been engaged in, and I didn't want them to think it was normal. So I ran in 2018 in a state Senate seat that was held by a Republican for 26 years and another Republican for 26 more before that. It was an open race. I lost by 2%. I came back in 2020 and I won. And I flipped a seat that was held by Republicans for 100 years. Then I got redistricted, and I just won a re-election in 2022 where 7,000 more Republicans voted, and there's 5,000 more registered Republicans in the district. I'm the only one of 42 Democratic senators where that's the case. So I went into this to advocate for public education and bring normalcy and a lack of toxicity into government. And I've got a lot done in the past 4 years, as you can imagine. But But I thank all of you for your support in this. I certainly thank Chair DelBene, and I thank my colleagues for running as well. We all know how serious this is. It's unbelievable to many of us that the former president has the support that he does. But that's why we have an important job to do. And I do believe with Kamala Harris at the top of the ticket and a lot of great candidates in the House and the Senate, that we are not only going to win, but that pendulum is going to swing back. It's going to swing back towards goodness, towards functionality. It has to. Right now, what we're seeing is simply unsustainable. And, you know, as I was near the end of my career as a teacher and counseled younger teachers, in a classroom, if you were chaotic, the class was chaotic. But if you were calm, the class was calm. And when you're running for office, you can't always be calm, but we need calm in government.
Mm-hmm. Thank you, John. As long as we got you up, I'll go to you first here. When you're out there with talking to the residents of your district, you talk to them, you listen to their concerns. What are you hearing, and what are you telling them?
Well, I'll say this. I will say there's two big issues here in upstate New York, you know, and I know there's a lot of chaos and a lot of attention on Long Island down there. We're 4.5 hours from Long Island, and I certainly support my hopefully future colleague Tom Swazi and Laura Gillen, who are the beneficiaries of some of that chaos, I would say. But two big things. In New York State, we have protected a woman's right to choose preemptively prior to the overturning of Roe, and we continue to embolden our laws here. We have an Equal Rights Amendment, which will contribute to that on the ballot in November. That, even though we are in a blue state with tremendous protections for providers and women, is still the number one issue. It really is. And then the other issue has to do with affordability and opportunity. We are a manufacturing city. I watched a lot of friends move away because in the 70s, 80s, and 90s, we lost that manufacturing base. We lost a major Air Force base in the eastern end of the district. So I've always heard that from the moment that I've run in the state Senate. But now, along with making sure that there's opportunity, there's also a major issue of taking away a woman's rights. So those are the biggest things in my district, I would say. I will say that with a state piece of legislation, along with the CHIPS and Science bill, they tied in together. We've got the largest private investment in the history of this country coming into my district in Clay, New York, just north of Syracuse, with Micron Technologies investing $100 billion. And that wouldn't have happened unless you rolled up your sleeve and got things done. And we did that in the state. Senator Schumer and the president did it in Washington. And as a result, you know, good things are on the horizon. So those are the big issues here. And what am I telling them? I'm telling them what I've done. I'm telling them I've protected a woman's right to choose. I've protected providers to be able to send contraceptive or abortive medication out of the state. And I talk about being the co-prime sponsor on that green chips legislation that is bringing a renaissance to upstate New York and central New York and the Mohawk Valley.
Mm-hmm. Good. Thank you, John. Kirsten, when you're out there with the residents of the 6th District, what are you hearing from them? And what are you telling them? I know the issues are maybe somewhat different. I know you have border issues to talk about there.
Somewhat different, but a lot the same. Again, the issue of reproductive rights is really at the top. You know, since we saw the repeal of Roe versus Wade, this has been kicked to the states, and Arizona right now almost had an 1864 criminal abortion ban go into effect. Basically, the Democrats were able to partner with just a few Republicans and repeal that, but we still have an abortion ban. It's a 15-week abortion ban without exceptions for rape or incest. So very, very extreme. On the ballot, though, in November, will be a constitutional amendment that actually puts back into the Constitution Roe versus Wade. So women's reproductive rights. And it's been very, very popular here. And I think it will drive turnout. So this is a major issue against my opponent, who cheered the repeal of Roe versus Wade and who actually was very instrumental in choosing the judges that put that 1864 law back into effect. So that's a top issue. But I'm also, and I'm hearing about that issue, you know, why are we dealing with this extremism? You know, why this issue has been settled, was settled for 50 years. You know, why are the Republicans bringing this back? People are sick and tired of the drama and the extremism. So they want to get through this extremism so that we can work on these, you know, bread and butter type issues like housing affordability is just huge in this state. We have a real crisis with that. These are issues that Amish and I worked on in the Arizona legislature, from supporting low-income tax credits for developers to build affordable housing, to a housing trust fund, which helped first-time home buyers and those in the rental market be able to afford homes. So bringing down prices, you know, going after those price gougers, we certainly saw that during the pandemic. Those are really top issues. Water is a top issue. We are in a hot desert environment here, feeling the impacts of climate change. And yet there's so many common sense things that we can do to use our water wisely. As you said, we're a border district. That is a top issue here. And we have seen, you know, the numbers of people coming to our southern border go up and down. It's really been a real problem to be able to really deal with the issue of drug smuggling and human trafficking. So that's why that bipartisan deal was so important in terms of the resources that would have brought to be able to process migrants who are applying for asylum and ramped up our security and our ability to deal with that drug traffic. So the fact that my opponent rejected that in order to, you know, help Trump run on a campaign issue of chaos at the border, that people are really listening to us. They're saying, oh my gosh, you know, the Democrats actually want to solve this issue rather than keeping it a political football. So these are the issues that I'm hearing about, but just as Chairman DelBene said, you know, the people are looking for ramping down the drama and partisanship and electing people who are going to get things done.
Mm-hmm. Thank you. I want to go to Amish. I would imagine, Amish, that your some of the issues would be pretty similar to Kirsten, just being the connecting district there. But you're also, as you said, an emergency room doctor.
But he's great. He really got lots of things done on these issues. So.
Well, Amish,
we served together, so it was fun.
Okay, but as an emergency room doctor, do you have a special insights into some of the issues, certainly the healthcare issues that your residents would be concerned about?
Oh, certainly, yeah. I mean, and that's one of the things that I highlight out there on the campaign trail. As Rep. Engel mentioned, Senator Engel, excuse me, mentioned, there's been 3 issues that have sort of hit the top, and this is from my direct conversations with these folks at the doors, as well as our polling data, of course. But in my district, it's like I said, wealthy, white, well-educated. That kind of gives you the picture. Scottsdale, Paradise Valley, Northeast, Maricopa County. That's all me. And what you hear is, first and foremost, I got to tell you, border. I'm not in Kirsten's district, but I hear about the border almost every other door that I go to. They want the border secured. They are upset about the way things have gone, and you've got to be able to talk about that and say we are going to secure the border. The thing that also hurts locally is fentanyl coming across, and then you see the effects of that in your neighborhoods, certainly in the emergency departments, which is often fatal or tragic. And so having that personal experience with that, both as a legislator and as a physician, I talk about that quite a lot. So that's one. The second one is, as Senator Engel mentioned, the issue of affordability, inflation. They keep bringing it up. The prices of stuff are very high, but here in Arizona, well, especially here in the Valley, the prices of housing have shot up so quickly that people are upset. They look at somebody like me who's 47 and say, you Gen Xer, you used to go out and leave college or whatever and go get an apartment of your own. Now 20-somethings are living in their parents' extra bedrooms or basements, and they're not happy. And a lot of that has to do with we're a fast growing state with a great economy, and so housing stock has been depleted faster than we were able to put it up. And so we're going to do something about that, making it easier to get more projects out there so that we can increase that housing supply. And also I talk a lot about how, again, in healthcare, the prices of pharmaceuticals are super high for seniors, which they cannot stand. Joe Biden capping insulin $35 and negotiating drug prices is a huge winner in my district. And then finally, women's reproductive rights. I have personally, over a career, taken care of hundreds of patients who had pregnancy-related complications. I know what it means to watch people in these harrowing circumstances, and I can even explain really well to people at the doors who happen to be pro-life why this is an issue that should be left not to legislation and blanket bans, but rather to a doctor-patient relationship, because many of us are caught between the oath we took to take care of people and jail time. And that doesn't work. And they can actually recognize that. And that's what I found really a good way of kind of communicating our values to a more, like I said, conservative audience. I'm going only to Republican and independent doors at this point, and just meeting with them one at a time and getting them to understand, here's who I am, and here's what we're going to do for you, and we're going to stay laser focused on these issues. So yeah, from the physician point of view, it helps on actually all three of those top issues that I mentioned.
Thank you. I want to go back to John Mannion very quickly, because we left him out of the immigration input here. So John, if you want to talk, because it is an issue up in central New York too.
It is. So it is in a way. Let's just say this, and I'll try to be as brief as possible, but we have many asylum seekers who were bused to New York City, and New York City has had a lot of challenges in that regard. I represent, I think, similar communities to my colleagues here, in that in my counties, I mentioned the numbers of my district. Well, I have 33 municipalities, 29 of them are run by Republicans. So Republican county executives, when the migrant crisis was happening in New York, declared states of emergency or filed lawsuits. So we do not have a large population of migrants in the areas I represent, which would be Onondaga County, where Syracuse is, Oneida, Madison, Cayuga, and Cortland. And what's ironic, I'll get to the irony in a second. What we do have are a small number of media outlets that lean conservative. And what they have done is perpetuate stories of fear over and over again related to busloads of migrants are traveling north in the middle of the night. We're going to have to shut down schools and house migrants there. We're going to take old hospitals, and that's where migrants will be living. That has riled people up and scared them. And that was a year ago. And none of those things happened. And I take great issue with that. But because of the crisis in New York City, and because we do not receive the federal funding as it relates to handling this situation, we've had to put $2+ billion to New York City to help them address the issue. And that is what I'm going to get hit on, and other upstate New Yorkers who don't represent New York City well. And I love my colleagues in New York City, and I continuously have to push back against a false narrative, which is that all of our money in Long Island and upstate New York go to New York City. It's not true. It's more so the opposite. But this is a situation where they're like, why am I paying for a migrant crisis when we have homeless veterans on the street? And that is the challenge there. And the answer is what the Republicans gave us, which is they had a chance to fix our problems at the border and chose not to, at the direction of the former president, solely for political purposes. So they chose not to pass, that bipartisan negotiated piece of legislation that would have been very helpful. They'd rather talk about the problem and gain political wins than fix it. And they've left the border problem broken.
Yeah. I want to come right back to you, John, with another question, but first I want to put up our Partners for Democracy website. Let me see here. Yeah. And anyway, it's partnersfordemocracy.com. Go there. The link is also in the chat if you want to do that. John, I mentioned earlier that we came within a whisker of the Democrats keeping the House in 2022, and New York turned out to be a disappointment on several. Just give me a little a quick summation on what happened there and why things are different this year.
Sure. Well, representing the majority of this district was John Katko, moderate Republican, and one of the 10 Republicans that voted for impeachment in the House. Then we had basically an open seat and a redistricted seat. It was very narrow. I do think we had a great candidate, Fran Canole, Navy veteran, who lost to Brandon Williams by 1%. And like Kirsten's opponent, I think he did a good job of hiding who he really was, and now he's not doing a good job of hiding who he is until the last few months. And it's like he doesn't know how to do this. He doesn't understand Central New York, and he's taking his lead from the far right wing of the party, and now he's trying to moderate. So for me, I appreciate the chair's comments about good candidates. I'm already a state senator. I've represented 52% of the district. I do well with independents and Republicans. And in my district, I feel very strongly that we're going to win this seat. And we have the support of the DCCC in the House Majority PAC. I have the support of 314, Science-Based Supporting Organization, Partners for Democracy, Swing Left, and others. But I will say this, I also, for the last 8 years of teaching, while teaching, was also a teacher association president. I represented 400 teachers, nurses, school psychologists, and social workers. And I say to win a district in a conservative leaning, regardless of party enrollment, conservative leaning district that independents tend to vote to the right, I've got flanking armies of tens of thousands of union members at the doors, making calls, writing postcards, and that I would not have run the first time had I not known that I would more than likely have that support. And it absolutely has been validated. And beyond what the Democratic Party can do in organizations like this, I have 170,000 AFL-CIO members in my congressional district out of 777,000, 170,000. And we are a very pro-labor area. They're very popular here. And I do hope and believe that their support is going to get us over the line again.
Mm-hmm. Kirsten, I want to talk about the dynamics that are going on in Arizona. I want to ask Amish as well about it. If you look at the ballot top to bottom, Ruben Gallegos is doing very well in his polling shows in his race against Kerry Lake. Mark Kelly doing well, but Kamala Harris not doing as well. They're polling higher than she is. How does that affect your campaigning? Are you trying to pull her along rather than getting a top-down benefit?
You really have to be here to kind of understand the psychology. And Arizonans are very independent minded. They don't want people to tell them how to vote. And even Democrats, just because there's a new Democrat on the block, she is tremendously, I do feel, popular with Democrats here. But overall, in this district, people are kind of independent leaning. And so, I'm focused on, winning this congressional seat, and being, as honest as I can with the voters about, the record of the Biden administration. They were late to the table on this issue of border security. Trump, separated families, they were terrible on the border too. So, I think really, the way we need to just be honest with the voters that, we're not going to necessarily, jump in with one party or the other. We're going to try to listen to the voters themselves and what they want. I think that is really important. So we're really trying to just focus on this congressional race, talk about my opponent's voting record, talk about how he has really left the people behind, sided with his party bosses in Washington, D.C. My record in not doing that, my record of representing a very large chunk of this district in the Arizona legislature, that's really the way we've got to go with the people here in Arizona.
Yeah, Amish, let me ask you the same question about how did you campaign without pulling the ticket top to bottom, focusing just on yourself getting elected?
I mean, I couldn't agree more with what my colleague Senator Engel basically said. Yeah, they were a little bit late to the table. Now, one thing I highlight is that our Arizona Democrats have been calling again and again for securing the border like Mark Kelly. And when we talk to the people of our district, including the Republicans in this district, they talk about how Senator Kelly is, quote, reasonable. That's the word that keeps coming up again and again. And they like that. They like that people are focused locally. And that's what we have to do. So it's in my district, CD1 here, in 2022, Mark Kelly won by 7 points. And when we poll, he polls very high with Republicans. He's got like a 22% favorability rate, which is fantastic. And then our Secretary of State, Adrian Fontes, he won by 8. Our governor won here by 4 points. And then David Schweikert, who is the guy I'm running against, the Republican, he won by 0.8% in 2022. And we had run a Democrat who, yes, did not get a whole lot of resources during that cycle, but also had never been elected to anything like myself and Senator Engel have actually worked. And so I think that those combinations of things make a really, really big difference to the people of Arizona, knowing that we're very focused locally. So it's that's the dynamic. When we did poll here in my district, I believe Kamala Harris is up by 1 point. It's a little bit interesting in that, yeah, she is below Ruben Gallego and Senator Mark Kelly. But I will say that the enthusiasm for her from the Democrats is certainly higher than we saw for Joe Biden. I also noticed that a lot of independents are not writing her off, dismissing her out of hand. I think that there is a genuine curiosity. They want to know, what is she about? What is she going to do for us? And they're willing to give her a chance. And I've noticed that. I think there was a little bit of, right about now, 2 weeks before the ballots are supposed to come out here, we're starting to see people making a decision on that race or coming to some conclusions. And all I can say is I think that they will come to their own conclusions about the top of the ticket. As Senator Engel said, Arizonans are notoriously independent and ticket splitting. In my district, in particular, they'll vote for Republican, Democrat, all down the ballot. So we see a lot of that here.
Let me put up the slide if I can here. See if this works. This is the Partners for Democracy website, and hopefully you can go to there and contribute to these candidates, the candidates on our top 11 flippable House district lists. And I think there's also another link where you can go to all the House members. But I want to come back and ask, I got a question from our friend Bob Curry, who's down in Wimberley, Texas. And he wants to know, as you're meeting and talking with Trump supporters in your district, do you understand why they support him? I mean, what's because it's kind of a mystery to a lot of people who follow politics. And let me start with Amish and go ahead.
Yeah, I'll take that. I mean, I've knocked on 22,000 doors personally, and I'll tell you, I've met a lot of Trump voters doing this. And I'm happy to report a lot of times I meet Trump voters and they tell me, yeah, we got no problem with you. We like what you have to say. We're going to have a Trump sign in the front yard, and you put your sign right next to Trump's sign, and we'll be voting for the both of you. So I got a lot of experience with this, going back even to my very first race in 2017 in kind of a blue district. But if I were to sum it up quickly, I'll just kind of put it this way. I think there are quite a few people who have felt politics itself is extremely dysfunctional, and they have a deep distrust of both parties. And so they're looking at that and they're saying, I just think that these guys all kind of sound the same. All politicians, they all kind of sound the same. And when this guy comes up, he speaks in a very freewheeling kind of way. And he said to certain demographics, he felt it felt as though, well, it's just he's just kind of being himself, and that kind of breaks through for some people. Basically, what I'm saying is he made them feel like he cared about them, and they hadn't felt that from other people. But the difference was when I showed up at the door and I said, I just want to engage in conversation with you. I'm here to care for you. That was my basic message. I want to make sure you understand that. Here's my number. I would give him the phone number. And I said, if I don't vote in a way that you like, or you don't think I care for you, give me a call. We'll sit and have coffee. And they said to me, yeah, it's obvious that you care because you're standing in front of me today. And that's what really caused them, that trust building and that relationship building was really what allowed me to move it forward. I think that, from a lot of people, we get this a lot from people in the Democratic Party. How could anybody vote for somebody like that? And I think that putting yourself, stepping back for a second, having some empathy and looking at their perspective and saying, this distrust of all politicians, and now say, well, look, we need somebody to come to us, speak to us directly, and have these conversations. It's work we need to do at the party. And it's kind of been over the last few years in politics and state politics, it's been my main message. Let's get out there. Let's knock those doors. Let's get to know people.
Mm-hmm. Kirsten, I want to ask you this same question, what you're hearing from Trump supporters on why they support him, and then we'll go to John.
I think my analysis would be the same as Amish's, but I would like to say that, a lot of the Trump supporters I have spoken to, some of which, there is a Trump Engel voter. I'm always curious about that, but I've also met a ton of Trump supporters who are not going to vote for Trump this time around. And they're like, I supported him before, but it's just gone too far. I just can't do it. And they're a bit at a loss. And I think that, that's been the challenge for Kamala Harris is really reaching out to those folks and making herself somebody that they can know and trust. And so I think the jury's out. She only became our candidate a month ago. People are still getting to know her. She's, just getting around to different places in the United States. So I think we will see some changes on that. The other thing I would just say is there is just tremendous energy going on here in Arizona. So at least among the Democrats, a lot of this is just a game of getting out the vote. So to the extent that we are not, she just doesn't have enough time to complete that job of persuading people that maybe she could if she had more time. I'm optimistic that we will be able to accomplish that in just getting out much more of the vote than we did over the last couple cycles.
Right. Good. And John, let's same question to you.
Try to keep my answer brief, but along with Amish, I hear and see people who are disenfranchised, and he is plain talking, not any kind of plain talk that my parents or my wife and I would allow. But the other thing is, it's racism. He's saying things or half saying things that there's a lot of people that have watched diversity grow in their communities, and they don't like it. They don't like it. It's that simple. And we're not going to get those people back in the short term. It's a sad state for us to see, I think. It's sad for me to see, because I think we all thought that this country as a whole was moving in a better direction. And 2016 allowed people's latent beliefs and thoughts and to be manifested by someone. And we got to push back against that in every way that we can, and make sure that we all support each other. And I know that we do on our side, but it's really it's tough to see. It's tough to see.
Okay. I want to put up the Partners for Democracy .com site. You can go there to contribute to the candidates. And I want to get out on one quick question. If you could just give me a quick answer as we wrap up, and I'll start with John. And I know you got a lot of colleges there. You got Syracuse and quite a few others. But voter registration, what are you seeing with new voters?
Yes, well, I hope I got this number right, but our voter registration numbers in the past 5 months are through the roof. In the largest county alone, Onondaga County, 30,000 new registered voters in Onondaga County alone. And there is a 2-to-1 disparity between Democrats and Republicans, meaning more Republicans are signing up to vote. And of course, there's independents there. But it's about 50% to 25 to 25, which is encouraging. And from a college voter enrollment standpoint, we have one person solely dedicated to college organizing, changing location of voting for students in this district, also signing up new voters, and then making sure that they're aware that they can vote early by mail in New York, no excuse mail-in voting, and that we have early voting. And fortunately for me, I've got graduates from Hamilton College, Syracuse University that are on my staff that just graduated, worked as interns, and now they're on the team. So they're closely connected to those STEM organizations on campus.
Good. Kirsten, you've got some insights from the University of Arizona.
Yeah, right. And I'm actually a college professor myself at the University of Arizona. And it's been amazing. Really, actually, since Kamala became our candidate at the top, there has really been an outpouring of enthusiasm. And I think she's really also emphasized issues that they care about, from reproductive rights to climate change to addressing gun violence. I'm very proud to have endorsements of groups that represent those interests. And same thing, we've really been building up our interns and our field staff, and we got this whole group of young people right outside this door here, and it really has been taking off. We've been over to campus registering voters, and there's really been a surge of enthusiasm. Again, we don't have much time. If we had more time, we get even more, but it's certainly really, really encouraging to see.
Okay, and Amish.
Sure. It's interesting. I don't have as much of a turnout problem out here. My district, I told you before, white, wealthy, well-educated, and they vote. So our turnouts are massive here, like over 90%. Even in the Democratic primary, I had areas with a 92% turnout. I mean, it's just, so trying to get more people to actually come out isn't necessarily always our challenge in CD1. So, that it is what it is. It's more persuasion honestly than it is.
But are you getting new young voters registering though?
I don't. So ASU is just outside of my district, so I don't have that as much. My district does tend to be a little bit on the older side, just a touch, right? I mean, I got Fountain Hills, I got Cave Creek, I got a lot of young people aren't necessarily there in those areas, but to the extent that we can register and get more people voting, obviously that really helps. But it's about how you present yourself. So like we talk a lot about, like Senator Engel said, about the endorsements that we have and who's actually coming out for us. Big things in my district, like I said, women's reproductive rights still among Republican women, among independent women. It's really, really a great thing, and I talk about that a lot. I got the Women's Health Champion Legislator of the Year award a couple of years ago because I helped protect. I mean, basically, women in Arizona today have access to mifepristone because of yours truly. So that's why I got that award, and that works really well with the young voters you're talking about. The second thing is I have the endorsement of the Arizona Police Association, which is huge in my district. And then number three, I'm not, Senator Engel and I have a couple other things in common. One is we're huge animal advocates, which is, she and I both got awards for that. And that is also really big in my district as well. So we'll be highlighting a lot of those things here. And I hope that's what it takes to kind of push over the edge.
Right. Well, thank you. And I should say, Amish, your district sort of mirrors the Partners for Democracy audience. We tend to trend older as well. So nothing wrong with that. Thank you, all three of you, for joining us this evening. It's a pleasure to talk with you, and we wish you the best of luck. Let's go to Ed Cohen for some closing thoughts.
Jim, thanks so much. And Amish and Kirsten and John, thank you. I don't know about you, Jim, but I'm coming away from this evening very enthused about the quality of the candidates that the Democratic Party has identified and is running in these key races. I think we got three terrific candidates in these three districts, and I'm very optimistic about it. And so thank you for joining us. The election is 6 weeks away, a day less, I guess. And there are lots of opportunities to get involved, and you can't sit and contemplate your navel and moan about Donald Trump. You can do something about it. Every Tuesday, we're sending you an email with opportunities where you can contribute, where you can volunteer, lots of volunteer opportunities. There's canvassing, there's postcard writing. You can volunteer at the polls. All of that's very important. Remind your friends, remind your family that they should be registering and voting. You can vote in many states now, and just keep reminding them they need to vote. This election is very winnable. We can take the House. We can win the White House. And I think we can even hold the Senate. But we're going to have to work like heck. And so it's going to take us. This is your chance. And isn't it time that you got involved? So thank you, everyone. We will be sending the video, the tape of this session out in the next day or two. And I think it's a really good opportunity for people to take a look at what kinds of candidates Democrats are running. They're very solid people. So with that, thank you very much. Thank you to our three candidates. Thank you, Chair Benny, and good evening.